Isabela, you're a journalist in Ecuador. We see some videos on the internet showing some people in Ecuador, they had to leave their beloved ones, dead bodies, unfortunately, on the streets. Can you please tell us what's happening right now in Ecuador?
Okay, Ecuador is the worst country in Latin America concerning the numbers of people that have COVID and the death, relating the number of the population. 3 weeks ago, the health system collapsed because there weren't enough beds, enough attention for all the people that had the virus, but not only the people that had it, but people with other diseases that could not be receive the attention. So the situation is really harsh. There's a specific city called Guayaquil in the coast that has the 70% of the cases. And in that city, because of the collapse of the system, many people start dying at their houses, at home, because they could not reach a hospital. They called the emergency number, no one came. 2 weeks ago, they were picking up daily 130 dead bodies from homes. So they were waiting for the government to pick up the corpses, and suddenly you had dead bodies in the streets because people didn't want to stay with a dead body in their houses for 5 or more days. So that was I think the biggest shock and problem that we already face. It's really heartbreaking, and it's really hard to understand how this happened, but it's because it didn't exist a protocol in which they said who is going to take charge, who is going to be in charge of picking up those corpses, because everything was relying mostly in the Ministry of Health at the beginning, and now it's already solved. You don't see the corpses in the streets. We were not ready, obviously. No one was ready for this. The first, the patient zero, was identified on February 29th. She was a lady that came from Spain. And when she was already diagnosed, she had been with at least 80 people, So the first flaw, the first mistake was not to control the airport.
Why is the mortality rate in Guayaquil is so high?
You have a big number of students, young students living in Spain, studying in Spain. These young people, these students, arrive to Guayaquil specifically, the place that was already messy, and they did not respect the quarantine, not all of them. You can say to middle-class people, stay at home, but how do you say a very poor family that lives in one room, 8 people, stay at home?
How would you describe the poverty in Ecuador?
There's a lot of inequality. In Quito, you have a strong middle class. In Guayaquil, you don't have that. You have the richest and the poorest. And when I say poorest, I mean these people living, we call it suburbs. Guayaquil, it's a city with informal commerce a lot. There are some corpses that have been lost. Many relatives can't find their dead ones, their dead loved ones. There's a hospital in one of a poor part in Guayaquil, but it's a public hospital that was dedicated only for COVID. They should have put the name tags at the time, but they didn't. That's a problem. The people that died at their homes or in other hospitals were taken to that hospital that literally have these containers of dead bodies. I'm in touch. I'm in a WhatsApp group where at least 20 people don't know where their family corpses are. During the first 2 weeks, there are some people that died, from the March 24th that haven't been found. And they went outside the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks, but they stopped going.
So what you're saying is really horrible. You're saying that there are some families, unfortunately, they cannot find their beloved ones' dead bodies. So how are they looking for them? Is there a place that they can go to?
What can people do now? Literally wait. Nothing else. Because the corpses are already moved from the hospital. This is really painful. I'm talking about a container where you can store meat, a refrigerator. And they were in one side of the hospital. And people start realizing, because they heard rumors from people that work inside the hospital, that the corpses were in the container. So they start pushing and saying, we want to see the bodies, and they open it. And this is the most painful part of it. I can send you the videos. I didn't even watch them all, but you can see the dead bodies one in the top of the other one. Some of these bodies did have the tags that I mentioned before, but they were not separate in different bags as they should have been. I know a person, she was an university friend. Her father died at home, but they chose for him to die at home because her mother had COVID too, and she was in the hospital, and she had a bad attention, no water, no food. At the end, she did call for, please come and pick him up. She tried more than once, but they never came. But because she had the money, she could arrange and bury him the next day. If she had only waited for the authorities to come, her father's corpse will still be in their house.